For many years, the legend of an evil spirit called the Bell Witch has roamed the rural parts of Robertson County, Tennessee. The phantom allegedly appeared in the early 1800s to haunt farmer John Bell and his family, but the ghost remains a part of American folklore to this day. It is said that the Bell Witch began as a relatively harmless entity, knocking on walls and removing blankets from beds, but she quickly turned violent. Soon, John's daughter Betsy began to get scratches and welts all over her body. And after about 3 years of escalating hauntings, the ghost allegedly was responsible for the death of John Bell. Numerous theories have arisen over the years in an attempt to explain the Bell Witch hauntings. Some believe a local schoolteacher who was in love with Betsy Bell somehow invented the eerie phenomena so the girl would leave her betrothed and marry him instead. Still others believe that John Bell was slowly poisoned with arsenic, perhaps by one of his slaves. While it is impossible to know the true nature of the unexplainable events that terrorized the Bell family in the 1800s, the legend of the Bell Witch persists as one of America's most famous ghost stories. According to the official Bell Witch website, the story of the legendary apparition began when Red River, Tennessee, now known as Adams, Tennessee, farmer John Bell caught a glimpse of a strange creature in his cornfield in 1817. The creature looked like a dog with the head of a rabbit, but it disappeared when he shot at it, so he did not think much of it. However, that same evening, while John and his family were sitting down for supper, they heard a strange knocking sound from outside. Several of John's sons ran out the door to see what it was, but they did not see anything. Over the next couple of weeks, John Bell and his family continued to see apparitions and hear noises they could not explain. One of his sons saw a bird of extraordinary size, and his daughter Betsy spotted a girl with a green dress swinging from the limb of an oak tree. Even one of John's slaves said that a large black dog had been following him around. As time went on, the paranormal activity increased in both frequency and violence. Soon the family began to hear knocking and choking sounds throughout the house, invisible dogs fighting, the sound of rats gnawing on the beds, and chains being dragged across the floors. John's children had their bed sheets ripped off them while they tried to sleep and suffered scratches on their bodies and their hair pulled by an unseen force. The ghost appeared to favor Betsy, as she was pinched, slapped, and stuck with pins. Sometimes the invisible assailant would leave red handprints and large welts all over her body. Supposedly, the witch claimed that she would not leave the Bell family alone until John was dead and Betsy broke off her engagement to a young man named Joshua Gardner. When John revealed the paranormal activity to his friend James Johnston, the man decided to spend a few nights at the Bell farm. During his stay, James was able to confirm that some sort of spirit appeared to be terrorizing the family. One account of the legend states that the Bell Witch was a spirit that was upset when the family built their farm on a Native American burial ground. Another account says that the Bell family once asked the spirit who she was, and she responded that she was the Witch of Cape Bats, a peculiar neighbor who was known for fabricating stories to get attention. Regardless of its identity, news began to spread about the vile ghost, and the Bell farm soon became a tourist attraction of sorts. People traveled there in order to witness the witch's trickeries for themselves. It is said that future United States President Andrew Jackson supposedly paid a visit to the Bell farm. According to the Tennessee State Library and Archives, in 1819 the then General Andrew Jackson heard stories about the Bell Witch and decided to investigate for himself. Some believe Jackson owned property on the Red River and visited the Bell farm when he was in the vicinity, while others say 3 of John Bell's sons had fought with him at the Battle of New Orleans, so he wanted to visit them and offer his assistance. As soon as Jackson and his staff entered the Bell property, one of their wagons became stuck. Notwithstanding their best efforts, the wheels would not turn, and Jackson exclaimed that it was the doing of the witch. According to legend, a disembodied voice then said, "All right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." That evening, one of Jackson's men proclaimed he was a witch tamer and had a silver bullet that would kill any evil spirit he encountered. No sooner were the words out of his mouth than he began screaming and jumping around, shouting that he was being poked with pins and beaten. A disembodied voice resonated through the air saying another fraud would be revealed the following day. Jackson's men begged to leave, but he convinced them to stay there for at least one more night. It is unknown exactly what happened that night at the Bell Farm, but locals saw Andrew Jackson rushing out of town the following morning, saying, "I would rather fight the British at New Orleans than fight the Bell Witch." Whatever the witch did to frighten the hardened general, it was nothing compared to what many believe she did to John Bell. From 1817 to 1820, the Bell Witch was an almost permanent fixture at the Bell Farm. According to the legend, the ghost would allegedly speak with the Bell family and visitors about the past and future, and she was especially well-versed in the Bible. It is said that she once quoted word for word 2 different sermons that had been given at the same time 13 miles apart. The entity began answering to the name Kate after she claimed to be the Witch of Kate Batts, was violent toward John and Betsy Bell. However, she seemed to like John's wife Lucy. She reportedly once brought her fresh fruit when she was ill and often complimented her. As the years passed and the ghostly encounters continued, John Bell began experiencing bizarre muscle twitches in his face. Soon John began to have other health issues including migraines, tingling sensations, fatigue, and seizures. Then, in December of 1820, John fell into a coma. The following day, he died at home. Mysteriously, John's family found a vial filled with a dark liquid in the kitchen cupboard that had not been there previously. John's son, John Bell Jr., allegedly put a drop on a cat's tongue and it immediately fell over dead. The Bell Witch's voice was then heard throughout the house saying, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." John Jr. threw the vial into the fire, where it exploded into a blue flame and shot up the chimney. With John dead, the witch then turned her focus to Betsy. The spirit began to follow her whenever she was with Joshua, her fiancé. The witch would pull her hair, beat her, and shout threats and profanities at the young couple. By March of 1821, Betsy could not handle it anymore. She broke off her engagement with Joshua and the Bell Witch suddenly stopped harassing her. The witch supposedly visited Lucy Bell and told her she was leaving, but she would return in 7 years. It is said that the witch was true to her word because in 1828, she reappeared to John Bell Jr. and stayed for 3 days at the Bell Farm. She spoke with him about the past, present, and future. It was even reported that she made predictions about the Civil War, which at that time was still over 30 years away. After she vanished for a second time, she allegedly said that she would return in 107 years, however there is no record of her reappearing in 1935. But some of John Bell's descendants claim they have seen signs of the enduring spirit. According to the Associated Press, Lucy Bell Butler claims that she and her daughter have seen the black dog from the original tale. They have also said to have seen a giggling girl like the one Betsy saw swinging from a tree limb 200 years ago. However, Butler's claims, along with every aspect of the Bell Witch legend, are doubted by many. After all, the legend is essentially folklore that has been passed down from generation to generation, though there are newspaper articles from the 1850s that talk about the witch. In 1894, newspaper editor Martin Ingram published the book An Authenticated History of the Famous Bell Witch. However, the book is considered to be controversial. Some believe the book to be a work of historical fiction, while others see it as a complete record of the legend of the Bell Witch. But since the story seems so improbable, many other theories about the true origins of the tale have emerged over the years. As with any good ghost story, there are multiple possible explanations for the events surrounding the Bell Witch haunting. One of the oldest theories involves Betsy Bell's teacher, Richard Powell. Although Powell was 11 years older than Betsy, he was said to be head over heels in love with her and was visibly upset when he found out that she was engaged to Joshua Gardner. He was also rumored to have knowledge of the occult, ventriloquism, and horticulture. In other words, if anyone could pull off such an involved hoax, it would be him. This theory is strengthened by the fact that Powell did indeed marry Betsy Bell after she broke off her engagement with Joshua Gardner. A more recent explanation of the Bell Witch haunting comes from Dr. Megan Mann, a chemistry professor at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, just 20 miles from the original site of the Bell farm. She has been quoted as saying that John Bell's son talked about all of these strange medical symptoms he was having, and a lot of them sounded very neurological to me, as someone who knows a bit about things like biochemistry and toxicology. If you look at the neurological symptoms, those are oftentimes caused by heavy metal poisoning. Dr. Mann noted that arsenic was a commonly used poison in the early 19th century, and long-term exposure to it would have caused symptoms such as muscle twitches and trouble swallowing that John experienced. Additionally, arsenic burns blue, which would explain the colorful explosion when John Jr. threw the mysterious vial in the fireplace. Dr. Mann believes that someone, perhaps someone from church who did not like the Bell family or one of the wealthy farmer's slaves, slowly poisoned John Bell over the course of 3 years, which finally led to his death in December of 1820. It is likely that no one will ever know the truth behind the Bell Witch legend. However, the accounts and theories associated with the folklore certainly offer great material for spooky campfire stories.